All right, let's talk about something that trips up almost everyone. How do you figure out what a company is actually worth? It seems like it should be straightforward, but the truth? Well, it's often buried under a whole lot of financial traps and illusions.
I mean, think about this for a second. How is it possible for a company to have billions with a B in sales and yet be completely worthless to an investor? Sounds crazy, right? But this isn't just a riddle. It happens all the time. And today, we're going to find out exactly how.
To get to the bottom of this, we have to go on a little journey down something that insiders call the staircase to value. We're going to start at the very top with the numbers you see everywhere, the most common and, frankly, the most misleading ones, and work our way down, step by step, to what's real.
So here's our game plan. We're going to investigate 5 of the most common valuation shortcuts: price to book, EV to sales, EV to EBITDA, the famous PE ratio, and we'll finish with dividend yield. With each step we take down this staircase, we'll get a little bit closer to a company's true financial health.
Okay, let's get started at the very top of the staircase. This is where the numbers look the most polished, but are often the most slippery. First up, we've got the price-to-book ratio. Now, on the surface, this one sounds pretty solid, right? You just take a company's stock price and compare it to its book value, which is basically what all its assets are worth on paper. And, for a company with really simple assets, like a mining firm that literally has gold sitting in a vault, it can work just fine. But what happens when those assets aren't so cut and dry? Let's take a look at a pretty infamous example. Bear Stearns, right before the 2008 financial meltdown. According to their books, their value was a very respectable $84 per share. And yet, when it all came crashing down, JP Morgan swooped in and bought the entire company for just $2 per share. That $84, it was a complete fantasy. It totally ignored all the toxic, worthless assets hiding in plain sight on the balance sheet.
Relying on book value is kind of like buying a house based only on what it costs to build, without ever bothering to check for termites, a leaky roof, or a cracked foundation. Sure, the paperwork looks great, but in reality, the whole thing could be about to collapse.
Okay, let's take our next step down the staircase to the EV to sales ratio. Now, EV just means enterprise value, a fancy way of saying a company's total value. This ratio is basically the metric of last resort. It's what you use when a company isn't even making a profit, like a brand new startup or an airline that's going through a rough patch. If there are no profits to measure, well, I guess you'll look at sales. And this right here shows you the huge, glaring problem. A company can have absolutely massive sales, let's say $100 million bucks. But if it costs them $120 million to get those sales, they're still losing a ton of money. Big sales numbers don't tell you a thing about whether the business actually works. I love this analogy. Using EV to sales is like judging a restaurant's success just by counting how many people walk in the door. It completely ignores the single most important question: is the restaurant actually making any money? You can have a full house every single night and still go broke.
All right, we're moving down into the middle of the staircase now, and this is where we find the real landmines, the metrics you hear about constantly, but that are just so easy to get wrong.
Next up, we have EV to EBITDA. Okay, EBITDA, it's a mouthful, I know. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Its main selling point is that it helps you compare the guts of different companies by taking out things like how much debt they have or what their tax situation is. It's actually pretty useful for comparing, say, two big manufacturing companies. But here is the massive, massive trap. EBITDA completely ignores real hard cash costs. Things like needing to build a new factory or replace all your computers. It's like looking at your total salary before they take out rent, your car payment, and your grocery bill. You might sound really rich on paper, but the actual cash left in your pocket could be zip, nothing. All right, let's talk about the big one. The celebrity of valuation metrics, the price to earnings ratio, or PE. You hear about it on the news, you see it on every finance website. It's simple, everybody kind of gets it, and it just compares a stock's price to its after-tax profits. But, and you knew there was a but coming, it has a huge weakness. That E for earnings, well, it can be played with. It can be massaged through all sorts of accounting tricks. So it's like buying a car based only on the fuel economy they claim in a slick TV commercial without ever looking at what it actually gets on the road in the real world. Okay,
let's take a little detour onto a specific path now. This one is all about those mature, stable companies that actually give cash directly back to their owners. And that brings us to the dividend yield. This is super simple. It's just the cash dividend a company pays out every year as a percentage of its stock price. For really steady businesses, think utility companies or big real estate firms, this is a really important number. Sometimes a high, safe yield can even act as a sort of price floor for a stock. But, and this is a really big but, a high dividend can be a total trap. Why? Because that payout is never, ever guaranteed. If a company gets into trouble, the dividend is often the very first thing they cut. Chasing a stock just for its high dividend is like taking a job just for the massive bonus, even though you have a pretty good feeling the company might go out of business next year. You may never see that bonus.
So here we are. We've walked down the stairs, we've dodged all the traps, and we've finally reached the bottom. So what's the real goal here? What have we been looking for this whole time?
Look at our journey. We went past price to book, past EV to sales, past EBITDA, PE, and even dividends. And they all point to one thing, the real prize. The ultimate goal of any serious valuation, free cash flow. This is the real, actual cash a business has left over that it can do anything it wants with.
And this, right here, is the single most important lesson of this entire journey. All those other numbers, they're just proxies, they're shortcuts, they're stories. The ultimate truth is that the closer you get to measuring real, hard, spendable cash, the stronger and more meaningful your valuation becomes. Everything else is just noise. Cash is reality. And that leaves us with one last thought. The next time you see a big headline about a company's record earnings, or its amazing sales growth, or its huge book value, I hope you'll stop for a second and ask yourself the one question that really, truly matters. That's nice, but where is the cash?